Captain Lee Woo-jin sat in the command chair of the Deep Space Monitoring Station called Aegis Prime. The station floated in the empty space between stars, far from Earth. Its job was to listen for signals from other worlds. For 3 years, Lee had commanded this station. Every day was the same. They listened to the silence of space and found nothing. Lieutenant Park Nari worked at the communications desk. She was young but very good at her job. She could hear signals that others missed. Today felt different to her. The space around them seemed to whisper with strange sounds. "Captain," Park Nari called out. Her voice was excited. "I'm getting something strange." Lee turned his chair toward her. "What kind of strange?" "It's not from any human ship or station. The pattern is all wrong. The frequency jumps around like nothing I've ever seen." Dr. Kim Tae-ho rushed over from his workstation. He was the station's expert on alien languages, though he had never found any real aliens to study. He was a thin man with thick glasses who loved puzzles more than anything. "Let me hear it," Kim said. Park Nari put the signal on the main speakers. The sound filled the command center. It was not like human radio or computer signals. It sounded like music mixed with static. Sometimes it was high and sharp. Other times it was low and deep. But under all the strange sounds there was something else. Fear. "This is definitely not human," Kim said. His hands shook as he worked on his computer. "The mathematical base is completely different. They don't count like we do." Lee stood up and walked closer. "Are you saying this is from aliens?" "Yes, sir. And Captain, I think they're in trouble." Kim worked for hours to understand the signal. He used every computer program he had. He compared the sounds to every language on Earth. Nothing matched. But slowly, patterns began to appear. The aliens used sound and math together in ways humans never thought of. Park Nari kept listening to the signal. It came in waves, getting weaker each time. "Captain, I think they're running out of power. Each message is shorter than the last." "How long do we have?" Lee asked. "Maybe 6 hours before we lose it completely." Kim wiped sweat from his face. "I'm starting to understand some of it. They call themselves something like Veltar. And they're asking for help." Lee felt his heart beat faster. First contact with aliens. This would change everything for humanity. "What kind of help?" "They're running from something. Something they call the consumers. From what I can tell, these consumers destroy everything in their path." The hours passed quickly. Kim worked without stopping. Park Nari watched the signal get weaker. Lee called Earth to report what they found, but it would take hours for any reply to reach them. Finally, Kim looked up from his computer. His face was pale. "Captain, I've translated enough to understand the main message." "Tell me." Kim read from his screen. "People of the death world called Earth. We are the Veltar. Our worlds burn. The consumers come for us. We have nowhere left to run. We beg you for sanctuary. We know your world is hostile to life. We know your people are violent and dangerous, but we have no choice. Please help us. We are dying." The command center went quiet. Everyone stared at Kim. "Deathworld?" Lee asked. "That's what they call Earth. They think our planet is so dangerous that nothing should be able to live here." Park Nari looked confused. "But we live here just fine." Kim continued reading. "There's more. They say that even the consumers avoid death worlds. The planets are too dangerous for them to conquer." Lee sat back down heavily. "So they want to Hide behind us because they think we're too scary for these consumers to attack? That's what it looks like, sir. The signal suddenly got much stronger. New words came through the speakers. Kim typed quickly to translate them. Captain, they're sending coordinates. They want to meet us at the edge of our solar system. They say they have refugee ships coming. Lee looked around at his crew. These were good people who had signed up to listen for radio signals, not to make decisions about alien refugees and galactic wars. How many ships? He asked. Kim listened to the new message. Thousands, sir, maybe millions of aliens on those ships. All that's left of their people. Park Nari worked at her station. Captain, I'm picking up new signals. Very faint, but they're coming from the direction the Veltar said. Multiple ships, all damaged from what I can tell. Lee knew this was bigger than his small station could handle. But the aliens were coming whether he was ready or not. Kim, can you send a message back to them? I think so, sir. The translation program is getting better. Tell them we received their message. Tell them to proceed to the coordinates they gave us, and tell them... Lee paused. What do you say to dying aliens? Tell them that Earth will hear their request. Kim worked to translate Lee's words into the alien language. When he finished, he sent the message toward the empty space where the alien ships traveled. They waited. Space was quiet again, except for the normal background noise of the universe. Then, slowly, a new signal came back. It was much clearer than before. Kim smiled for the first time in hours. They understand us, Captain. They're thanking us, and they're sending more information about the consumers. What kind of information? Kim's smile disappeared. The bad kind, sir. The consumers don't just kill people. They eat entire planets. They turn everything they touch into more of themselves. Worlds that took billions of years to form become part of their fleet in just days. Lee felt cold. How many worlds have they destroyed? 12 star systems, sir. Billions of people. The Veltar are all that escaped from the last world. Park Nari looked up from her station. Captain, I'm getting a message from Earth Command. They want to know everything about the alien signal. Lee knew that everything was about to change, not just for his station, but for all of humanity. They had spent so long wondering if they were alone in the universe. Now they knew they weren't. But they also knew that something terrible was coming. Send them everything we have, Lee ordered, and tell them to prepare for refugees, lots of them. As his crew worked to send the information to Earth, Lee looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, alien ships full of desperate people raced toward his solar system. Behind them came something that ate worlds. He had always thought that first contact would be wonderful. Now he wondered if humanity was ready for what was coming. The aliens called Earth a death world. Maybe that was exactly what the galaxy needed. Admiral Choi Hee-jin stood in the war room deep under the mountains of Korea. The room was filled with screens showing star maps and data from across the solar system. She had been in charge of Earth Defense Command for 5 years. In all that time, she had never expected to deal with aliens. The message from Captain Lee's station had arrived 3 hours ago. Since then, her best people had been working to understand what it meant. The translation was clear, but the meaning was hard to believe. Show me the analysis again, Admiral Choi said to her staff. Commander Yoon Dae-sung stepped forward. He was the head of xenobiology, the study of alien life. Until today, it had been a job with no real work to do. Now he was the most important person in the room. Admiral, the alien message tells us several things, Yoon began. First, there are many alien civilizations in the galaxy. Second, they all know about Earth. Third, they think our planet is too dangerous for life. Admiral Choi looked at the translated message on the main screen. Explain how they think Earth is dangerous. Yoon touched a control, and pictures of Earth appeared on the screens. There were volcanoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, and wild animals. From what we can understand, most alien worlds are very calm places. They don't have the extreme weather we have. They don't have predators like tigers or sharks. Their gravity is much lighter than ours. So what does that mean for us? It means that just living on Earth makes us stronger than most aliens. What we think is normal, they think is impossible. Another officer, Dr. Lim So-young, joined the conversation. She was an expert on alien technology from the message. Admiral, there's something else, Dr. Lim said. The aliens sent technical data about their ships and weapons. Everything they have is designed for perfect conditions. Clean air, light gravity, no weather. Admiral Choi studied the alien ship designs. They were beautiful, but looked very fragile. These ships wouldn't last 5 minutes in a thunderstorm. Exactly, Dr. Lim agreed. And their people probably couldn't survive on Earth for more than a few hours. Our air is too thick. Our gravity is too strong. Our weather is too violent. Commander Yoon added more information. But Admiral, this gives us an advantage. If the aliens think Earth is a death world, then maybe the consumers will think the same thing. The room went quiet as everyone thought about this. Admiral Choi had read the reports about the consumers. They were like a galactic plague, eating everything in their path. Tell me more about the consumers, she ordered. Yoon brought up new images on the screens. They showed star systems before and after the consumer attacks. The before pictures showed beautiful worlds with cities and forests. The after pictures showed nothing but empty space and strange dark ships. The Veltar data suggests that the consumers are a hive mind, Yoon explained. They all think together as one giant brain. They eat planets by breaking them down into basic materials. Then they use those materials to build more consumer ships and bodies. How do they choose which planets to attack? They seem to prefer easy targets. Worlds with good weather, light gravity, and peaceful people. They avoid anything that might damage them or slow them down. Admiral Choi began to understand. So, they've been avoiding Earth because they think it's too dangerous. Yes, but Admiral, there's a problem, Dr. Lim said. The consumers have never met a death world with space travel. They don't know that humans exist. This was the heart of the problem. The consumers avoided dangerous planets, but they had never found dangerous people who could fight back in space. A new officer entered the room. It was General Han Seok-jin, the head of Earth's military forces. He had been reading all the alien data since it arrived. Admiral, General Han said, I've been studying the consumer attack patterns. They're very predictable. They always attack the same way because it always works. What way is that? They send huge fleets to surround a planet. They destroy all the defenses. Then they land and start eating everything. The alien civilizations they've fought were all peaceful. They had no real weapons or military training. Admiral Choi felt a cold smile form on her face. But we're not peaceful. No, ma'am. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We know how to fight in space, on planets, in the air, and underwater. We've built weapons that can work in any environment. Dr. Lim brought up more alien data. Admiral, look at this. The aliens have been sending messages to each other about the consumers for years. They're all terrified. Some civilizations just gave up and waited to die. How many civilizations are we talking about? Hundreds, maybe thousands. The galaxy is full of intelligent life. But they're all like the Veltar. Peaceful, fragile, and completely unprepared for war. Admiral Choi walked to the big window that looked out over the command center. Hundreds of people worked at computers and communication stations. They were preparing for something that had never happened before in human history. "So let me understand this," she said. "The galaxy is full of aliens who think Earth is too dangerous to visit. Now something is eating the galaxy, and those same aliens want to hide behind us." "That's correct, Admiral," Commander Yoon said. "And this thing that's eating the galaxy has never fought anyone who fights back." "Also correct." Admiral Choi turned back to her staff. "How long do we have?" Dr. Lim checked her computer. "The Veltar refugee ships will arrive in 6 days. Based on their data, the consumer fleet will arrive about 2 weeks after that. 6 days to prepare for refugees, 2 weeks to prepare for war." Admiral Choi looked at each of her officers. "General Han, I want every human military unit ready for combat. This includes space forces, ground forces, and everything in between." "Yes, ma'am." "Commander Yoon, I want you to work with the aliens when they arrive. Learn everything you can about the consumers." "Understood, Admiral." "Dr. Lim, study their technology. See if there's anything useful we can learn quickly." "I'll start immediately." Admiral Choi looked back at the screens showing the alien message. "And I want everyone to understand something. The aliens think we're monsters because we live on a death world. Maybe they're right, but if being monsters is what it takes to stop the consumers, then we'll be the best monsters the galaxy has ever seen." The room buzzed with activity as everyone began their new tasks. Admiral Choi knew that the next few weeks would decide the fate of not just humanity, but every living thing in the galaxy. She thought about the irony of it all. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they knew they weren't alone, but they were the only ones willing to fight. Dr. Song Min-ae floated in zero gravity inside the medical bay of the space station sanctuary. The station had been built quickly in the outer solar system to receive the alien refugees. She had never treated an alien before, but she was about to learn. The first Veltar ships had arrived 2 hours ago. They were beautiful but clearly damaged. Long cracks ran along their crystal-like hulls. Some ships barely made it to the station before their engines died completely. "Dr. Song," called Nurse Park Kyung-ho from the airlock, "the first aliens are coming aboard." Song Min-ah pushed herself toward the airlock, using handholds on the walls. She had studied the Veltar biological data that came with their messages, but seeing them in person was different. The first Veltar came through the airlock slowly. It looked like a walking crystal sculpture. Its body was made of clear blue material that seemed to glow from inside. It was tall and thin, with long arms that ended in delicate hands. Where a human would have a face, it had patterns of light that changed color. "Welcome," Dr. Song said, using the translation device that had been built from the Veltar language data. The aliens' light patterns shifted to show yellow and green colors. The translator turned this into words. "Thank you, dangerous one. We are grateful for sanctuary." Dr. Song felt strange being called dangerous, but she understood why. To these fragile beings, humans must seem incredibly strong and violent. Major Kang Hyun-woo led the security team that escorted more Veltar from their ships. He was a careful man who never took risks with safety, but looking at these aliens, he felt like a giant among children. "Dr. Song," Major Kang said through his radio, "you need to see what's in their ships." Song Min-ah followed the Major through the connecting tunnel to the nearest Veltar ship. Inside, she gasped. The ship was full of injured aliens, hundreds. of them lay in crystalline beds, their bodies cracked and dim. "What happened to them?" she asked. A new Veltar approached. This one was different from the others. Its crystal body had gold patterns running through it, and it moved with authority. "I am Sylvan," the alien said through the translator. "I speak for my people. These are the survivors of our world's death." "How did they get hurt?" "The consumers came to our world 3 months ago. They began eating our cities. These people were caught in the destruction before we could evacuate them." Dr. Song examined one of the injured Veltar. The alien's crystal body had deep cracks, like a broken window. "How do your people heal?" "We use harmonic resonance," Sylvan explained. "Sound and vibration repair our crystalline structure." "But our healing chambers were destroyed," Songmina thought quickly. "Can we make the right sounds and vibrations?" "Perhaps, but it would require perfect precision. Too much vibration would shatter us. Too little would not heal." Major Kang stepped forward. "Ambassador Sylvan, we need to know more about the consumers. How much time do we have?" Sylvan's light patterns turned dark red. "Not long. They follow our trail. When they find this system, they will try to consume everything, including your death world." "Tell us exactly what they are." Sylvan led them to a viewing area of the ship. Through the crystal walls they could see space and the other refugee ships. "The consumers were once like us," Sylvan began. "A peaceful people who lived in harmony with their world, but something changed them. They began to believe that all matter in the universe belonged to them." "How do they consume planets?" Dr. Song asked. "They have machines that break down everything into basic atoms. Rock, water, air, living beings. Everything becomes raw material. They use this material to build more consumer bodies and ships." Major Kang studied the datapad in his hands. "How many of them are there?" "We do not know exactly. Every world they consume makes them stronger. When they destroyed our home, their fleet had over 10,000 ships." Dr. Song felt sick thinking about an entire planet being eaten alive. "How do they decide which planets to attack?" "They prefer worlds that are easy to consume. Calm weather, light gravity, peaceful people. They avoid what you call death worlds because the harsh conditions damage their machines and bodies." This was what the humans had hoped to hear. Major Kang made notes on his datapad. "But," Sylvan continued, "they have never encountered a death world with technology. They do not know that your people can build ships and weapons. When they discover this, they may change their strategy. Through the ship's communication system, more Veltar voices could be heard." Dr. Song listened to the translator as it turned their words into human language. "They're scared," she realized. "Yes," Sylvan agreed. "We have never seen anything stop the consumers." They destroyed the Mordane Empire, which had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. They consumed the Zalthek warrior clans, who were the greatest fighters we knew. Nothing can stand against them. Major Kang looked directly at Sylvan. "Have any of these great civilizations tried fighting back?" "Of course they fought, but their idea of war is very different from yours. The Mordane used energy shields and precise beam weapons. The Zalthek fought with honor and tradition, all very civilized. What makes you think humans will be different?" Sylvan's light pattern showed colors that the translator could not interpret. Finally, words came. "Because you live on a world that tries to kill you every day, and you not only survive, you thrive. Because you build weapons designed to work in terrible conditions. Because when we told you about the consumers, you did not flee or surrender. You asked how to fight them. Dr. Song began to understand what made humans different. Every other species in the galaxy had evolved on safe, peaceful worlds. They had never needed to become tough or aggressive. Humans had grown up on a planet that forced them to be strong. "Sylvan," she said, "what can your people do to help us fight?" "We are not warriors, but we have knowledge. Our harmonic technology can disrupt their communication systems. Our crystal ships are invisible to their sensors when properly tuned, and we know their weaknesses." "What weaknesses?" "The consumers think as one mind. If that mind becomes confused or overwhelmed, their entire fleet becomes disorganized. But no one has ever been able to create enough chaos to confuse them." Major Kang smiled grimly. "Then they've never fought humans." Over the next several hours, more Veltar ships arrived. Dr. Song worked with her medical team to help the injured aliens. She learned that Veltar bodies could be repaired using sound waves, but it required very precise frequencies. She had an idea. "Major, what if we use human musicians? They understand sound and rhythm better than our machines do." "Musicians as doctors? Why not? These aliens heal with music. We have people who make music for a living." As the day continued, Dr. Song watched. Human doctors and nurses working alongside Veltar healers. The aliens were amazed by how gently the humans treated them, despite being called dangerous deathworlders. Sylvan approached Dr. Song as she finished treating another patient. "Doctor, my people are beginning to hope again. We had thought hope was lost when our world died." "What changed?" "We have spent our lives fearing death worlds and the dangerous beings that live on them. Now we see that dangerous beings can also be protectors." Dr. Song looked around the medical bay. Humans and aliens worked together to heal the wounded. Outside, human engineers helped repair Veltar ships. In the command center, military officers planned defenses against an enemy that had never been defeated. "Sylvan," she said, "when the consumers arrive, they're going to learn something new about Deathworlders." "What is that?" "We don't just survive dangerous conditions. We create them." General Han Seok-jin stood before the largest holographic display in Earth Defense Command. The display showed everything the Veltar knew about the consumers. It was not a pleasant sight. "Show me the attack on the Zalthek homeworld again," he ordered. Bei Ji-wan, the command's top technology specialist, worked at her computer. The hologram changed to show a beautiful planet with silver cities and floating towers. Then the consumer fleet arrived. "The consumers sent 1,000 ships," Bei explained. "They surrounded the planet and destroyed all orbital defenses in the first hour." The hologram showed dark, angular ships swarming around the planet like insects. Energy beams shot down from the ships, turning the silver cities into dust. "The Zalthek were considered the greatest warriors in the galaxy," General Han said. "How did they lose so quickly?" Captain O. Subin, the command's strategic analyst, pointed to different parts of the display. "Sir, the Zalthek fought with honor. They announced their attacks. They gave their enemies chances to surrender. They followed rules of warfare that had worked for thousands of years." "And the consumers?" "The consumers don't follow any rules. They don't care about honor or fairness. They just want to consume everything as quickly as possible." General Han studied the tactical data. The Zalthek had powerful weapons and strong ships, but they used them in predictable ways. The consumers learned their patterns and adapted quickly. What about the Mordane Empire? They ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. Bay brought up new images. The Mordane were tall, elegant beings who lived in crystal palaces that floated in space. Their technology was beautiful and sophisticated. The Mordane tried to negotiate first, Captain O explained. They sent ambassadors to the consumers, offering to share territory. Let me guess. The consumers ate the ambassadors. Yes, sir. Then they ate the Mordane homeworld and their 12 largest colonies. Dr. Lim Young-soo entered the command center. He was Earth's leading expert on quantum physics and had been studying consumer technology all week. General, I think I understand how their hive mind works, Dr. Lim said. Explain. Dr. Lim pointed to the holographic display. The consumers use quantum entanglement to share thoughts instantly across their entire fleet. Every consumer body and ship is connected to every other one. They think and act as a single organism. That sounds like an advantage for them. It is, but it's also a weakness. The more connected a system is, the more vulnerable it becomes to interference. General Han was interested. What kind of interference? Chaos, sir. Their hive mind works because everything is orderly and predictable. If you introduce too much random information, the system becomes overloaded. Captain O looked up from her computer. Sir, that matches what we've learned about their tactics. They always attack the same way because their hive mind has found the most efficient method, which means they won't be ready for something completely different, General Han realized. Bai Ji-wan had been analyzing consumer ship designs. General, there's something else. Their ships are built for efficiency, not durability. They assume they'll always have overwhelming advantages in numbers and firepower. Show me. The hologram displayed a consumer ship. It was dark and angular, covered in weapons and sensor arrays. But General Han noticed something important. Their armor is thin, he observed. Very thin, sir. They've never needed heavy armor because nobody has ever been able to fight back effectively. Dr. Lim added more information. Their weapons are designed to break down matter at the atomic level. Very effective against buildings and unshielded targets. But human military equipment is built to survive in harsh conditions. General Han smiled. This was starting to sound like good news. Captain O, what do our war simulations tell us? Sir, if we fight them the way previous civilizations did, we'll lose just as badly. But if we fight them the way humans fight, go on. Humans don't fight fair, sir. We use ambush tactics, guerrilla warfare, and psychological operations. We adapt quickly when plans fail. We fight dirty when we have to. General Han had been thinking about this for days. Every alien civilization that the consumers had faced was predictable. They had rules, traditions, and honor codes that limited how they fought. Humans had rules too, but they also knew when to break them. Bai, what can you tell me about their communication systems? They use quantum entanglement for instant communication. Across any distance, it's completely secure and impossible to intercept. But what if we don't try to intercept it? What if we try to jam it? Dr. Lim looked excited. Sir, if we could disrupt their quantum entanglement even briefly, it would be like cutting the nerves in a body. Parts of their fleet would be unable to coordinate with the rest. How do we do that? Controlled quantum chaos, sir. We'd need to create random quantum events near their ships. It wouldn't destroy them, but it would confuse their hive mind. Captain O was taking notes quickly. General, if we could do that during a battle, we could pick off isolated consumer ships. What about their ability to consume planets? Bai brought up technical specifications. Sir, their consumption machines need stable conditions to work properly. They can't function in extreme weather, high radiation, or unstable gravity fields. General Han looked at the image of Earth on another display. Storm clouds swirled over the oceans. Lightning flashed in the atmosphere. Solar radiation bathed the planet in energy that would kill most aliens, so their planet-eating machines wouldn't work well on Earth. Not at all, sir. Earth's magnetic field, weather patterns, and geological activity would interfere with their equipment constantly. This was the key insight General Han had been waiting for. The consumers had never encountered a civilization that lived on a world hostile to their technology. Dr. Lim, can we create similar conditions in space? You mean artificial storms and radiation fields? Theoretically, yes. Our ships are designed to operate in solar storms and cosmic radiation. Consumer ships aren't. Captain O, start working on battle plans that use environmental warfare. I want options for creating chaos in space. Yes, sir. General Han walked to the window overlooking the command center. Hundreds of people worked at computers, preparing for a war unlike any in galactic history. Bay, how long until the consumer fleet arrives? Our best estimate is 10 days, sir. 10 days to prepare for an enemy that has never lost a battle. General Han turned back to his staff. But they've never fought anyone from a deathworld before. Dr. Lim looked at the consumer ship designs again. Sir, there's one more thing. The consumers always attack immediately after arriving at a new system. They don't scout or gather intelligence first. Why not? Because they've never needed to. Every civilization they've encountered was either too weak to fight or too predictable to surprise them. Captain O realized what this meant. Sir, they'll come into our solar system expecting another easy victory. They won't be prepared for human tactics. General Han felt the first real confidence he'd had since learning about the consumers. The enemy was powerful, but they had made a critical mistake. They had never learned to expect the unexpected. Ladies and gentlemen, he said to his staff, we're going to teach the consumers something new. They're going to learn what happens when deathworlders fight back. President Seo Ga-un stood at the podium in the United Nations building. Representatives from every nation on Earth filled the assembly hall. Behind them, holographic displays showed images of Veltar refugees and their damaged ships. My fellow humans, the president began, we face a choice that will define our species forever. The hall was completely quiet. Everyone knew about the alien refugees and the threat that followed them. The news had spread across Earth in just days. The beings you see behind me are refugees from across the galaxy. They have come to us because they believe Earth is too dangerous for their enemies to attack. They call our world a death world, and they call us deathworlders. Engineer Ko In-ho watched the speech from his workshop on Luna Station. Around him, human and Veltar technicians worked together to modify human technology for alien use. It was amazing how quickly the two species had learned to cooperate. Ko, called his assistant, Park Young-mi, the harmonic resonance chamber is ready for testing. Ko looked at the device they had built. It looked like a crystal cave filled with human computer equipment. The Veltar healers had taught them how to create precise sound waves that could repair alien injuries. Is Sylvan ready to test it? The Veltar ambassador approached slowly. Its crystal body still showed cracks from the escape from its homeworld, but it had volunteered to test the new healing chamber. I am ready, friend Ko, Sylvan said through the translator. Your people continue to amaze us. Ko watched as Sylvan entered the chamber. Human computers controlled Veltar harmonic technology to create the exact frequencies needed for healing. It was a perfect example of how the two species could work together. On Earth, President Seo continued her speech. These refugees bring us knowledge of civilizations that span the galaxy. They also bring us warning of a threat that has destroyed 12 star systems. But they offer us something else, the chance to become more than we ever imagined. Lieutenant Commander Nam Yuna was watching the speech from the bridge of the starship Sol. Her ship was one of 20 human vessels that had been modified with Veltar technology. The combination was incredible. Commander, reported her navigation. Officer, we're receiving signals from the edge of the solar system. What kind of signals? Not Veltar, ma'am. Something else. Multiple sources. Nam Yuna felt her heart rate increase. Are they consumer signals? No, ma'am. These are different. They're using mathematical patterns similar to the Veltar, but more complex. On the main screen, her communications officer displayed the signal analysis. Nam Yuna studied the patterns. Ma'am, the communications officer said, I think these are messages from other refugee species. Nam Yuna couldn't believe it. How many species? At least 6 different signal types, ma'am. Maybe more. Back at the United Nations, President Seo was announcing something that would change human history. Today, I am proud to announce the formation of the Deathworld Alliance. Earth will provide sanctuary to any species fleeing the consumers. We will share our technology, our knowledge, and our protection. Engineer Ko watched through his workshop window as new ships appeared near Luna Station. They were not Veltar, ships. These vessels looked completely different. Some were organic and flowing, others were geometric and precise. Ko, Park Young-mai called out, we're getting communication requests from the new arrivals. They want to send representatives. Within hours, Ko's workshop became a meeting place for species that had never worked together before. The Veltar were crystalline beings who used harmonic technology. The new arrivals included the Torval, who were plant-like creatures that grew their technology instead of building it. There were also the Kethmar, insect-like beings who worked as hive minds, but much smaller than the consumer hive. This is remarkable, said Dr. Yao Seilin, a Torval scientist. Her voice came through a biological translator that was actually a living organism. Never have so many species worked together, Sylvan agreed. In all of galactic history, Deathworld species have been avoided. We thought you were too dangerous to approach. Ko looked around his workshop. Human engineers worked alongside plant people and crystal beings and insect creatures. Each species brought unique knowledge and abilities. What changed your minds? Ko asked. A Kethmar warrior named Ziktar answered. The consumers. When death comes for everyone, previous fears become foolish. Lieutenant Commander Nam was coordinating the arrival of refugee fleets from across the galaxy. Her modified ship could communicate with all of them thanks to Veltar translation technology. Commander, her science officer reported, we're seeing something incredible. These species are sharing technology freely. The plant people are giving us biological computers. The crystal people are teaching harmonic engineering. The insect people know advanced metallurgy. Nam understood what was happening. For the first time in galactic history, all the different alien civilizations were working together instead of staying separate. Ma'am, the communications officer called out, we're getting a priority message from Earth Defense Command. General Han's face appeared on the main screen. Commander Nam, how many refugee species have arrived? 14 confirmed species, sir. More ships arriving every hour. What are they bringing us? Technology, sir. Lots of it. And they all want to help fight the consumers. Engineer Ko was learning that each alien species had evolved different solutions to the same problems. The Torval could grow computers that repaired themselves. The Kethmar could make metal that became stronger when damaged. The Veltar could create force fields using sound waves. "Ko," said Sylvan, "our combined technologies could create weapons and defenses that no single species could imagine." Ko was already sketching designs. What if we combined Torval biological computers with Veltar harmonic systems and human adaptive engineering? The result would be technology that could change and adapt during battle, Dr. Yao suggested. Perfect for fighting an enemy that relies on predictable patterns, added Ziktar. President Seo concluded her speech with words that would be remembered forever. "To the consumers, we are deathworlders, dangerous beings from a hostile planet. They think this makes us weak. They are wrong. Being deathworlders has made us strong, and now every species that stands with us becomes a deathworlder too." Ko stepped outside his workshop to look at the space around Luna Station. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species filled the area. Each one was different, representing a unique way of understanding the universe. But they all had one thing in common now. They had all chosen to stand and fight instead of running away. "Park," Ko called to his assistant. "Send a message to Earth Defense Command. Tell them the Deathworld Alliance is ready to show the consumers what happens when the galaxy fights." Back. Lieutenant Commander Nam received similar messages from ship after ship. Species that had never fought together before were preparing for the greatest battle in galactic history. "Ma'am," her tactical officer said, "the alien ships are requesting permission to integrate with our defense fleet." Nam smiled. "Permission. Granted. Let's show these consumers what Deathworlders can do when we work together." Fleet Admiral Ryu Dong-min stood on the bridge of the battleship Incheon as alarms sounded throughout the ship. The moment humanity had been preparing for had finally arrived. The consumer fleet had entered the solar system. "Admiral," reported Commander Lee Hyo-jin from the sensor station. "Consumer fleet detected at the edge of the system. Preliminary count shows over 8,000 ships." Ryu studied the tactical display. Dark, angular ships were spreading out in a perfect formation, just as the Veltar data had predicted. They moved with the precision of a hive mind that had conquered 12 star systems. Distance to lead ships? 6 billion kilometers and closing. Sir, at their current speed, they'll reach Earth in 18 hours. Pilot Jeon Mi-kyung sat in the cockpit of her fighter craft Eagle 7. She was part of the advanced scout wing that would make first contact with the enemy. Around her, other, human and alien ships prepared for the battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy. "Eagle Squadron," came the voice of Squadron Leader Kim Tae-bok. "Prepare for launch. Remember, these consumers have never fought anyone who fights back. Let's give them a proper Deathworlder welcome." Mi-kyung checked her ship's systems. The Yai fighter was a hybrid of human and alien technology. Veltar harmonic shields protected it from energy weapons. Torval biological computers adapted instantly to changing conditions. Kethmar reactive armor became stronger when hit. "Eagle 7 ready for launch," she reported. "All Eagles, launch in 30 seconds. On the Incheon's bridge, Admiral Ryu watched as the first wave of fighters left their ships. Unlike the organized formations that other species used, the human fighters moved in chaotic patterns that looked random, but were carefully planned. "Admiral," called Captain Hwang Byung-ho from the destroyer Busan, "the consumers are maintaining their standard attack formation. They're not adapting to our scattered deployment." This was exactly what the humans had hoped for. The consumer hive mind was so confident in its proven tactics that it couldn't imagine needing to change them. "Captain Hwang, begin Phase 1. Captain, Hwang's ship was one of 20 vessels hiding in the asteroid belt. They had been waiting there for 3 days, using the rocky debris to mask their signatures from consumer sensors. "All ships," Huang transmitted, "begin meteor shower protocol." The human ships began pushing asteroids toward the consumer fleet. To the aliens, it would look like a natural phenomenon, space rocks being pulled by gravitational forces. The consumers had dealt with asteroid fields before and simply adjusted their course to avoid the largest rocks. But these weren't just rocks. John Mi-kyung and her squadron were flying inside the asteroid field, using the rocks as cover. Each asteroid had been fitted with human explosives and Veltar harmonic resonators. "Eagles," Squadron Leader Kim transmitted, "target the consumer sensor ships first. Without sensors, their hive mind becomes partially blind." Mi-kyung locked onto a consumer ship that was scanning the asteroids. The alien vessel was sleek and efficient, covered in sensor arrays that fed information back to the hive mind. "Eagle 7 engaging target." She fired a missile that had been designed specifically for this battle. It contained Torval biological components that could adapt to enemy defenses. The missile struck the consumer ship and began eating through its hull like a living acid. The consumer ship tried to seal the breach, but the biological weapon adapted faster than their repair systems could work. Within minutes, the ship's sensor arrays went dark. Admiral Ryu watched as similar attacks happened across the consumer formation. The enemy was losing ships, but more importantly, they were losing information. "Admiral," reported Commander Lee, "consumer fleet is showing signs of confusion. Their formation is becoming less organized. This was the key to fighting a hive mind. Without perfect information, perfect coordination became impossible." "Begin Phase 2, Admiral Ryu ordered. Captain Huang's destroyer emerged from behind a large asteroid, followed by the rest of the hidden fleet. They opened fire with weapons that had never been seen in galactic warfare before. Human railguns fired projectiles at incredible speeds. Veltar harmonic cannons disrupted the molecular structure of enemy ships. Torval bioweapons ate through consumer armor. Kethmar plasma charges created explosions that fed on themselves, but the most devastating weapons were the chaos generators that Dr. Lim had designed. These devices created random quantum events that interfered with consumer communication systems. "Direct hit on consumer command ship," reported Captain Huang. "Their quantum entanglement network is disrupted." Admiral Ryu smiled grimly. The consumer fleet was beginning to act like individual ships instead of a coordinated force. Some ships continued the attack. Others tried to retreat. A few simply stopped moving as their hive mind connection failed. John Mi-kyung flew through the battle, dodging energy beams and debris. Her biological computer was learning from every consumer weapon it encountered, making her ship harder to hit with each passing minute. "Eagle 7 to all Eagles," she transmitted. "The consumers are trying to re-establish their network. Focus fire on ships with communication arrays." The human fighters swarmed through the consumer formation like angry wasps. They didn't fight in neat lines or followed traditional tactics. They attacked from unexpected angles, used debris as weapons, and coordinated through rapid, chaotic communication that the consumer hive mind couldn't predict. Admiral Ryu received reports from across the battle. "Admiral, the consumer fleet is splitting up. About half are continuing toward Earth. The other half are trying to retreat." "Let the retreating ships go," Ryu ordered. "Focus all fire on the ships heading for Earth." This decision shocked his alien allies. Sylvan, who was observing from the bridge, asked, "Admiral, why do you not pursue the fleeing ships?" "Because," Ryu explained, "we want some of them to escape and report what happened here. Fear is a weapon too. Captain Huang's destroyer was engaged in close combat with 3 consumer ships. His vessel was taking heavy damage, but the Kethmar reactive armor was holding. "Captain," reported his weapons officer, "we've lost main engines and primary weapons." Huang looked at the tactical display. One of the consumer ships was moving to finish them off. He made a decision that would be remembered throughout galactic history. "All hands abandon ship," he ordered. "Set collision course for the consumer vessel." "Sir?" "You heard me. Evacuate the crew and ram that ship." This was pure human tactics, using a damaged ship as a weapon. No other species in galactic history had ever thought of such a thing. The Busan, with its remaining crew of volunteers, accelerated toward the consumer ship. The aliens tried to change course, but human vessels were designed to be maneuverable even when damaged. The collision destroyed both ships in a brilliant explosion that could be seen across the solar system. Admiral Ryu felt the loss of Captain Huang and his volunteers, but their sacrifice had accomplished something important. The consumer fleet was now completely demoralized. Ships that had never experienced defeat were fleeing in panic. "Admiral," reported Commander Lee, "consumer fleet is in full retreat. Only about 2,000 ships are still combat effective. And our losses? Heavy, sir, but acceptable. We've proven that the consumers can be defeated." John Mikyung returned to the Incheon with her squadron. Half of the Eagle fighters had been lost, but they had accomplished their mission. "Eagle 7 landing," she reported as her damaged ship touched down in the hangar bay. As she climbed out of her cockpit, she was surrounded by cheering crew members. Humans, Veltar, Torval, and Kethmar all celebrated together. Admiral Ryu addressed the fleet. "Today, Deathworlders have shown the galaxy that the consumers are not invincible. But this is only the beginning. Word of this battle will spread, and other civilizations will find the courage to fight back." Sylvan approached the Admiral. "Your people have given us something we thought was lost forever." "What's that?" "Hope." Ambassador Lee Ha-young stood before the Galactic Council for the first time in human history. The council chamber was enormous, floating in space near the center of the galaxy. Representatives from hundreds of species sat in crystalline seats that hung in the air without visible support. But today was different from any council meeting in galactic history. Instead of the usual quiet discussions, the chamber buzzed with excited conversation. News of humanity's victory over the consumers had spread across the galaxy in just weeks. "The Council recognizes the representative from the death world called Earth," announced the Council speaker, a being of pure energy that had no physical form. Lee Ha-young stepped forward. She was a small human woman standing before creatures that were tall as trees, wide as buildings, or strange beyond human imagination. But she did not feel small. "Honored council members," she began, "I bring greetings from the Deathworld Alliance." A ripple of sound went through the chamber. The phrase Deathworld Alliance was new to galactic politics. For generations, you have feared Deathworlds and the beings that live on them. You called us savage, dangerous, and unfit for civilized contact. You were right about one thing: we are dangerous. But you were wrong about what that means. Dr. Moonkate watched the speech from Earth's embassy ship, which floated near the council chamber. Around him, screens showed reactions from across the galaxy. On some worlds, crowds gathered to watch the historic moment. On others, military leaders studied recordings of the battle against the consumers. "Dr. Moon," called his assistant, "we're receiving communication requests from over 300 worlds. They all want to know more about human military tactics. Moon looked at the list of planets requesting information. These were civilizations that had hidden from the consumers for years, too frightened to fight back. Now they wanted to learn from the species they had once called monsters. In the council chamber, Lee Ha-young continued her speech. Behind her, holographic displays showed the battle in Earth's solar system. Council members watched in amazement as human ships used tactics that no civilized species had ever considered. "You see ships ramming each other," Lee explained. "You see fighters using debris as weapons. You see commanders sacrificing their own vessels to protect others. These actions horrify you because you think of them as wasteful and savage." A representative from the Mordane Empire spoke up. The Mordane were tall, elegant beings who had ruled much of the galaxy before the consumers came. "Ambassador Lee," the Mordane said, "your people destroyed their own ships to win a battle. How is this civilized behavior?" Lee Ha-young smiled. "Because, honored representative, those ships were just metal and circuits. The people who sacrificed them did so to save millions of lives on refugee ships. We call this courage, not savagery." The Mordane representative sat back, clearly thinking about this answer. A Zalthek warrior stood up. The Zalthek were proud, beings who valued honor above all else. They had lost their homeworld to the consumers, despite being considered the galaxy's greatest fighters. "Human ambassador," the Zalthek said. "My people fought the consumers with honor and tradition. We gave them fair warning before attacking. We used proven tactics that had brought us victory for centuries. We were destroyed. Your people fought with no honor at all, and you won. Explain this." Lee Ha-young had prepared for this question. Honor is important, but survival is more important. When your children are in danger, do you fight with honor, or do you fight to win? The Zalthek warrior was quiet for a long moment. "We fight to win," he finally admitted. "Then you understand why humans fight the way we do. Every battle might be the one that decides if our species survives." Dr. Moon was monitoring reactions across the galaxy. "Sir," his assistant reported, "we're seeing something incredible. Military academies on dozens of worlds are requesting human instructors. They want to learn our combat tactics." This was exactly what Earth's leaders had hoped for. The galaxy was beginning to understand that deathworlders weren't just dangerous, they were effective. A new voice spoke in the council chamber. It belonged to Representative Colthen of the Ethmori Collective, one of the galaxy's oldest civilizations. "Ambassador Lee," Colthen said, "your victory was impressive, but the consumers will adapt. They will study your tactics and develop countermeasures." "What then?" Lee Ha-young had been waiting for this question too. "Then we'll adapt faster. That's what deathworlders do. We change, we improvise, we find new solutions to impossible problems." "But surely there are limits to adaptation. Are there?" Lee gestured to the displays showing Earth. "My species evolved on a world that floods, freezes, burns, and shakes. We survived ice ages, meteor impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, and global plagues. Every disaster that should have killed us only made us stronger." The council chamber was completely quiet now. Every representative was thinking about what this meant. Lee Ha-young continued, "But here's the most important thing you need to understand. We're not asking you to become like us. We're asking you to let us teach you to become stronger versions of yourselves." This was the key message that Earth wanted to send. Humans weren't trying to conquer the galaxy. They were offering to help it survive. The Deathworld Alliance welcomes any species that wants to learn. We will teach you our tactics, share our technology, and fight beside you against the consumers. But in return, you must be willing to change. A young representative from the Veltar spoke up. Ambassador, how do peaceful species learn to fight like Deathworlders? The same way Deathworlders learned to be peaceful when we needed to, Lee replied. By understanding that sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to become what your enemies fear. Dr. Moon was watching the data streams from across the galaxy. The response was overwhelming. Hundreds of worlds were volunteering to join the Deathworld Alliance. Military fleets were requesting joint training exercises with human forces. Scientists wanted to study human adaptive technologies, but the most important response came from the consumer-occupied territories. Resistance movements that had been hiding for years were beginning to fight back. They were using human tactics, guerrilla warfare, sabotage, and surprise attacks. Dr. Moon, his assistant, called out, "We just received a message from the Kethmar, homeworld. The resistance there has retaken 3 major cities using human combat manuals." In the council chamber, the council speaker was preparing to call for a vote. The Galactic Council will now vote on Resolution 2387, recognition of the Deathworld Alliance as a legitimate galactic government and military force. Lee Ha-young held her breath. This vote would determine whether humanity would be accepted as a galactic civilization or remain isolated as dangerous outcasts. The voting began. One by one, species that had never agreed on anything voted to accept the Deathworlders into galactic society. When the count was finished, the council speaker announced the result. Resolution 2387 passes by a vote of 847 to 23, the Deathworld. Alliance is hereby recognized as a full member of the Galactic Council. The chamber erupted in cheers and celebration. Species that had spent generations fearing each other were now allies against a common threat. Lee Ha-young felt tears in her eyes as she realized what this meant. Humanity was no longer alone. But, more importantly, the galaxy was no longer helpless. "Dr. Moon," she transmitted to the embassy ship, "send a message to Earth. Tell them the galaxy is ready to fight back." As news of the council vote spread, resistance movements on consumer-occupied worlds began coordinating their efforts. The galaxy's greatest fear had become its greatest hope. The Deathworlders were no longer outsiders. They were the leaders of a new galactic alliance that would take the fight directly to the consumers. Commander Shin Yun-suk stood on the bridge of the starship Indomitable as it traveled through the void between galaxies. 2 years had passed since the first victory against the consumers, and everything had changed. The Indomitable was unlike any ship ever built. Its hull combined human steel with Veltar crystal technology. Its weapons used Torval biological systems that could adapt during battle. Its shields were powered by Kethmar reactive energy cores. Most importantly, its crew represented dozens of species working together. "Commander," reported Lieutenant Park J. Min from the engineering station, "we're approaching the target galaxy. Long-range sensors are detecting consumer activity." Shin looked at the tactical display. The galaxy ahead of them was dying. Dark. Ships swarmed around its outer stars, consuming everything they found. But this time, the consumers were not alone. Ships from the Deathworld Coalition were already there, fighting back. "Communications, contact the resistance forces in that galaxy." "Yes, ma'am." The Indomitable was part of the Void Hunter fleet, ships that could operate in the empty space between galaxies. Their mission was to find consumer fleets before they reached inhabited systems and destroy them in the dark between the stars. Engineer Park J. Min had helped design these ships. They were built with one principle in mind. They could function anywhere, under any conditions. Human engineering had taught the galaxy that the most dangerous environments often provided the best advantages. "Commander," called the communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the galaxy ahead. It's from something called the Resistance Coalition." "Put it on speakers." A voice filled the bridge, speaking in a language that their universal translator had never heard before. "Unknown ships? This is General Vector of the Free Worlds. Are you consumer vessels?" Shin smiled. Even in a distant galaxy, the pattern was the same. Local species fighting back against the consumers using tactics they had learned from humans. "General Vector, this is Commander Shin of the Deathworld Coalition ship Indomitable. We're here to help." There was a long pause. Then, "Deathworlders? The stories are true? You have come to help us?" "That's correct, General. How can we assist?" Over the next hour, Shin learned about the situation in this galaxy. The consumers had been attacking for 6 months, but unlike in previous conquests, they were meeting serious resistance. Local species had learned human tactics from transmissions that had traveled across intergalactic space. "Commander," General Vector explained, "we have been using your guerrilla warfare manuals. We hide in asteroid fields and attack consumer supply lines. We use our planet's weather as weapons. We sacrifice damaged ships to destroy larger consumer vessels." Shin felt proud of how quickly these aliens had adapted Deathworlder tactics. "What do you need from us?" "We need coordination. Our species have never worked together before. We don't know how to combine our different technologies and abilities." This was exactly what the Deathworld Coalition had become expert at doing. Captain Kim So-young joined the conversation from her ship, the Defiant. She commanded a squadron of mixed-species vessels that specialized in teaching cooperation to resistance movements. "General Vector," Kim said, "will send liaison teams to work with each of your species. Within a week, you'll be fighting as a unified force." The work began immediately. Human officers transferred to alien ships to teach coordination. Veltar engineers showed locals how to adapt their technology for warfare. Torval biologists helped develop new weapons systems. Kethmar tacticians trained alien commanders in hive mind disruption techniques. Engineer Park worked with a species called the Neth Kala, who could manipulate gravity fields. "If we combine your gravity technology with our plasma weapons," he explained, "we can create weapons that bend around enemy shields." The Neth Kala engineer was excited. "And if we use Veltar harmonic resonance to focus the gravity fields, the weapons would be impossible for the consumers to defend against," Park finished. This was the true power of the Deathworld Coalition. Not just human tactics, but the combination of every species' unique abilities into something greater than the sum of its parts. Commander Shin received reports from across the galaxy. Resistance cells that had been fighting alone were now coordinating their attacks. Consumer fleets that had been winning were suddenly facing organized opposition. "Ma'am," reported her tactical officer, "consumer activity is changing. They're pulling back from several systems and concentrating their forces. They're adapting to our tactics," Shin realized. "Good. That means we're hurting them." A new message came from General Vector. "Commander, the consumers are massing for a major attack on our core worlds. Can your fleet assist?" Shin looked around her bridge. Her crew included humans, Veltar, Torval, Kethmar, and now several species from this new galaxy. They had all chosen to become deathworlders, not by birth, but by choice. General, the Indomitable and her sister ships will join your defense fleet. But I want you to understand something. This battle won't just be about stopping the consumers. It will be about showing this galaxy that united, we're stronger than any enemy. The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. Ships from dozens of species fought together, using tactics that combined the best of every civilization. Consumer vessels that had never faced coordinated resistance found themselves outmaneuvered and outfought. Captain Kim's ship worked with gravity-manipulating Nethkala vessels to create space-time distortions that confused consumer navigation. Engineer Park's hybrid weapon systems proved devastatingly effective against enemy shields. But the most important victory was not military. It was seeing former enemies work together to protect each other. Commander, reported Lieutenant Park, consumer forces are in full retreat. They're abandoning this galaxy. Shin nodded, but she knew this was just one victory in a much larger war. Communications. Send a message to Earth. Tell them this galaxy is now part of the coalition. As the Indomitable prepared to leave for the next crisis, Commander Shin received an unexpected transmission. It came from the edge of intergalactic space, from a direction where no known galaxies existed. Unknown Deathworld vessels, the message said. This is the Andromeda Emergency Council. We have heard of your victories against the consumers. Our galaxy is under attack. Please help us. Shin looked at her diverse crew. 2 years ago, they had been strangers from different worlds. Now they were family, united by their choice to protect others. Helm, set course for the Andromeda Galaxy. Ma'am, that's a 6-month journey through empty space. Then we'd better get started. As the Indomitable and its fleet jumped to hyperspace, Engineer Park sent a message to the ship's log. The galaxy used to fear Deathworlders because we were dangerous. Now the universe fears us because we're dangerous to the right things. Commander Shin added her own entry. We began as outcasts from a hostile world. We became the guardians of peaceful civilizations. Today, we learned that anyone can choose to become a Deathworlder. All it takes is the courage to fight for others, instead of just yourself. Captain Kim watched the stars change from her bridge, and made her own log entry. The void between galaxies is dark and empty, but it's not silent anymore. It echoes with the voices of species who refuse to give up, refuse to surrender, and refuse to let evil win. The consumers thought the universe belonged to them. They were wrong. It belongs to anyone brave enough to defend it. The ships of the Deathworld Coalition traveled through the dark between stars, carrying hope to distant worlds and proving that sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe is someone who cares enough to fight for strangers. Behind them, the galaxy they had just saved began to rebuild. Ahead of them, another galaxy waited for salvation. And in the vast darkness of space, the legend of the Deathworlders continued to grow.